Hi guys. So today is gonna be next class and we can sacrifice this today for shifting. Shifting, this is the most difficult thing during the final test, right? So when we're driving on the streets, so the main problem people have with downshifting and upshifting. Like, you know, during skill tests we have a problem with, let's say, parallel parking, and during pre-trip inspections a major problem is like a air brake test. So what we have in this truck, so on all these trucks, we have a 10-speed transmission. So in real life you can have a lot of different transmissions, but you have to pass the test at least on 9-speed transmission, but the most popular transmission we have, you know, is 10-speed, and maybe in the future you will drive such kind of transmission soon. So what is the important thing, because some people did drive stick shift, you know, in a passenger car. Shifting here is totally different story, because like we mentioned before, this transmission is not synchronized. This is not the transmission that you press the clutch and you can do whatever you want. This is transmission that you have to know the technique how to upshift and how to downshift. So we have two major procedures, right? Upshift and downshift. And maybe you remember, before you upshift, you have to know what we did before, clutch brake operation. So to engage the first gear to start driving. So right now, let's go to the 10-speed transmission. 10-speed transmission, this is the gear pattern. So what is important? That you have a reverse over here, so we have like a two reverse, low and high. Second, we have a 1, 2, 3, 4 and 5. And then this is the low range. Low range. So if you want to go farther, so we have a switch on the shifter. So you put the switch up when you are here, and then you're gonna go for 6, 7, 8, 9 and 10. So if you shift from 6 to 10, the shifter is on the top position. Then when you downshift and you try to go to low range, so then when you reach gear number 6 and you have to go to number 5, you have to remember that before you start, you have to turn switch down and then go to 5, 4, 3, 2 and 1. And like I mentioned before, for now, because we are driving the empty trailer, there is not 80,000 pounds vehicle, so you don't have to, for the state purpose, start from the first gear. On driving on the streets, you can start from the third gear. So then, usually for our, you know, state road, you have to reach, so the gears like a 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. This is, you don't have to go to 9. And then if you are at 8 gear, so you have to, when you downshift before the intersection, so the state requires us to go from 8 to 7, 7 to 6 and 6 to 5. That's all. And you can stop your vehicle on 5th gear. You don't have to go to 4. But you have to remember that after you stop the truck, you have to make sure that the switch is down. This is a major rule. All the time when you stop the truck, make sure that the switch is down and then go to 3. It's true, right? Yeah. Okay. So let's go to the how does it work also. If this is like a diagram, so you see the pattern, and it doesn't mean that you have to just go like a straight line like a machine. Okay, don't do that, because each transmission has a little bit difference. Even if we have the same manufacturers, it depends on the drivers. We have a lot of drivers in driving school, so that's why you have to know exactly how to find the gear and how to apply the gear. So that's why it's like a little curves, not exactly straight line. So don't try to force transmission, because even if you know when the gear is on the picture, it doesn't mean that you just push and go into the gear. We have to do something else before you apply the gear. But like I mentioned before also, the transmission is made like this, that we have a neutral position. You remember neutral position? So neutral, it means that any of the transmission gears, right, is not engaged into the transmission shaft gear. So neutral, you can just put if you're just warming up the truck, all right, and you're waiting somewhere and truck is running. So this is a neutral. So the tractor and trailer is not driving. And neutral, we have a, from this point to this point, but transmission helps you to find the gear, because for some people this is not 4-gear transmission like in the passenger car. It's gonna be much more, right? So we have like a 3 paths here. And what is important, that the transmission, when you feel it, it helps you to find another gear. So for example, if you leave the stick by itself, so usually there is some springs and they put the shifter in this position in the middle. So you know that in front of you, forward, you have a gear number 2. Backward, you have gear number 3. You don't have to do nothing, this is the basic path. So if you don't go to number 1 and reverse, so you have to pull the shifter to yourself and put towards you or maybe against, right? So it means that you have to pull, you have to just, there is like a little resistance, this is spring. You have to just pull to yourself. So that's why, and you can imagine when you go from number 1 to number 2, so what does it mean? You don't have to do like machine, such kind of pattern. You just let it go. And the transmission, it goes by itself to the next gear. So it means it helps. The transmission is built that way. So the same thing if you go to passenger cars, right, you have the same story, right? It helps, but you have to let it help. Don't try to govern all the time and use your power to do that. So then when you go to number 3, so it's easy because you just make it like 2 movements, right? Because always we have to go through the neutral. Don't never try to go in a one shot from 2 to 3. You have to go to neutral and third. And then when you're going to the number 4 from 3, so this is also not difficult because this takes a little bit more time, but you have to just push away all the way to the end. And usually it's not gonna be like such kind of pattern, just right and up. So it's gonna be like a little curve, little curve, little curve. So a way of you. So that's why you go into the gear when you make this little curve. So that's why if you do your shifting from 4 to 5, what happens? So you usually do like this, neutral, you see, you don't go straight, and then again the second curve. So like two curves. Okay, so don't just try to go like on this. This is on the picture. So we recommend you always to practice. Engine is running, you don't drive, you close your eyes and you press the clutch, and slowly you practice positioning of the gear, slowly, not like this. I said before, right? Remember, go to gym if you try to do that. Now you have to just start feeling under your hand where is the next gear. How does it work? And what is also important, that each gear, doesn't matter, is gonna be reverse or forward, so has like a little entrance. So when you push slightly into the direction of the gear, so it is like you catching the position, and then there is like a full engagement, like 2 steps. You have to remember this. So to make shifting properly, before you go into the next gear, you have to find this entrance, and then it just gets by itself. If RPMs, comes together of, transmission and this shaft, transmission shaft, so it just gets without any noise because they are spinning with the same speed. So feeling here. So if you train and if you practice your positioning of the gears, so you have to close your eyes. Maybe you have to look forward. Don't look over here, right? Just start thinking by your hand. This is the key. Because some people, maybe many people, get nervous and they think, oh, this is, the machine problem. No, this is your problem. If you have a problem with shifting, this is your problem. Because you maybe are unable to find the next gear position. Maybe you don't even know where you are. And some people, they try to go, let's say, from 3 to 4. And instead of going all the way here, they try to have a shortage. It's terrible, especially during driving. What happens? You go between gears. If you go between gears, you have a lot of graining.
And now you're losing all your RPMs.
And exactly.
Now you got to guess what gear to go in now.
So, exactly, because if you start driving without the gear, the whole vehicle, right, is slowing down.
Right.
So this is another thing we're gonna talk later in this section about recovering. Exactly how to do recovering if you lose the gear. So I hope right now that you understand now that this pattern is just on the board. You have to practice and feel where the next gear is. And you remember I said before also that the driving is like a prediction, is planning. So a lot of you, especially at the beginning, you don't know where you are. So before you make a decision to go from one gear to another gear, so you have to make sure which gear you are and to what gear you're gonna go to. Especially if you have too many things going on the streets. So you forget where you are. And then you can lose gear very easily. And you don't even know, what gear you should go to. So this is a situation, if you make a decision to start for the, to upshift or downshift, you have to know your starting position and your final position. And like I mentioned, only you are the person who can synchronize this, transmission. There is no help. And we're gonna talk about technique today, how to upshift and how to downshift. Maybe you remember we have a clutch pedal. Some of you have no experience with gear, stick shift, but we have a clutch pedal, and we explained already, how the clutch work. Maybe let me remind you, when you press the clutch, what do? You separate engine from transmission and clutch, right? So it means that in what situation we use the clutch, we separate these two guys only for shifting. Okay? Because if you're driving, you don't have to press the clutch pedal, because these two plates, flywheel and transmission plate, should be together, right? So we transfer the power of the engine into the back, so we can keep driving. So, like I said, there is like three different ways to changing gears. One is double clutching. And double clutching, it means that you have to use clutch twice, right? So you have to use clutch once when you go from the gear to the neutral, and the second you have to go from the neutral to the next gear. Doesn't matter if you go up or down, so you have to use clutch twice. So anyway, we have each shifting is like a double 2 steps, or maybe even 3 if we're talking about downshifting. Never try, like I mentioned, to go from the one gear at once to the next gear. Always you have to stop on neutral. It's gonna be 1, 2. Okay? In downshifting is gonna be 1, acceleration, and 2. So never try, like the passenger car, make a one movement. All right? Because you have such kind of experience from stick shift passenger cars. And why we use this, I explain later. The second option, but we don't teach this, is single clutching. Single clutching, it means that you press clutch, so you separate clutch and flywheel only when you go to the neutral. And then when you put together spinning of these two systems, transmission and transmission shaft, it will be at 14 RPMs, so they spin with the same speed. You don't have to even press the clutch to just get in. There is no noise, it gets in. All right? But for state purpose, we have to do double. You have to know how to use clutch. Another option, and probably most of you will drive that way in the future, is floating. No clutch. So clutch at this moment is used only to engage the first gear. You remember, because we have to start the truck. So you press the clutch all the way down, stop the clutch plate, and then go to the first gear. Then when you start driving, you use only accelerator and you go from gear to gear. So it needs some experience, and usually we start to do that not at 17 but around 13 RPMs, 12, 13. So experienced driver, he knows exactly where is the next gear. He doesn't need time to find the next gear. So that's why if you are skillful, you can just accelerate. During acceleration it's easier to get out and then go. So it's gonna be like a boom boom. It's very fast. And what happens? What are the consequences? That you save your clutch. You remember the big clutch plate? So this, for example, the average professional driver, he used, he drives like a 100,000 miles on one clutch. We have to replace, because of you, the clutch like almost every year, so every 10,000. All right, so this is the average life of the clutch. Because we use all the time the clutch, right? So this is a situation. But in another thing, you know, some big companies, they require you to double clutch. And they can control that. Because we have a computers, we have a, you know. So if you don't know the double clutch, so it means that you are not going to be hired. Or maybe you're going to be fired, all right, if you hire. So that's why we teach also people double, and that's, you should understand what happens and how we shift, upshift and downshift, and why do we have a clutch at this moment. Okay, so floating is a different story. We're not going to talk today. Single clutch is similar, but you know, the only difference is that you don't use the second clutch to enter for another gear, and we concentrate on the double clutching. Can you open your book on the page number 27? I'm sorry, 25. Do you have like a table, right? On the left hand side, what do you have? You have a gear numbers, right? So how many gears do we have? 10, right? And maybe you remember, this is tachometer. And if you're driving to California, let's say you're driving 10 hours, so your average speed, you know, of the engine, because this is an engine speed, not ground speed. Tachometer, it's here. This is ground speed, speedometer. So usually when you're driving and you're changing gears, your engine speed should be between 11 to, let's say, 16, maybe 17. This is the range. But why we change, you know, the ground speed, you can see in this table. Take a look. If you engaged gear number 1, right? First gear. So if you have a 11 RPM, this is the second column, you see, your speed will be like is in the book, right? If you accelerate, speed it up, when you reach 16, 17 RPMs, so your speed will be like a 2-3 miles higher, right? And then what happens? You know, your engine gives you the signal and start revving, right? So it say, come on, change the gear. You're killing me. Okay? So if you are experienced driver, you feel it, you hear it, you know, and you know that. You have a, like a, you know, smooth, feeling here. So at 17 or 16, you change your gear to the second gear. You see? In your table, you have on the left hand side the second gear, and then the range of ground speed is different, right? So it could be between 6, right? And it's 6 and 8. So when you come to, let's say, 16, 17, your ground speed will be 8 miles per hour. And then, this is the average here. You see, you change gears, transmission gears, and your speed increases. But remember, always engine speed is in the same range. It doesn't happen that you just press accelerator and the speed of the engine is going around, right? Doesn't work that way. That's why we have a transmission. If you have a transmission, your range will be always between 11 to 17. And this table is in front of you on the page 25, right? So it's very, very helpful. In the last section we're gonna cover today, recovering. If you lose the gear, so you have to know which gear you should apply because the vehicle is slowing down. Let's go to the page number 27. Before we analyze, one more time, let me explain something. What does it mean? Why we have to press clutch when we shift? Because if you're driving, doesn't make any difference. Let's say 7 miles per hour, 50 miles per hour, there's no difference. The speed of the engine, which is transferred to the clutch, to the transmission, is the same. So everything is spinning and is very tight. So it's really difficult if you reach 17 because it's spinning fast just to go to neutral, right? So to make it easy, so what do we have to do? We just separate the engine. So we like make loose here, right? So it's much more easier right now to jump to neutral. This is clear, right? Because if you keep spinning, right, so it's difficult. You can feel in the track even if you try to do it too early. So we need this clutch. So separate engine from the other system, first of all, to go to neutral. And then we have to do it the same when we go to the next gear. So it's much easier to go to the next gear. Because even if you are not exactly, let's say at 14, you match exactly RPMs as spinning speed. So if you release, separate the engine again by second clutch, so it means it's much easier to put these two systems together. So that's why we use clutch. So clutch, one more time, is needed for two things: for shifting up and down, and also to engage first gear. And of course, if you stop the truck, right? If you stop the truck, you have to press the clutch to avoid killing the engine. So now let's go to the page number 27 and we analyze upshifting. If you remember, you apply the first gear using clutch brake and it takes usually like 5-6 seconds. Shifting up, it takes approximately 1 second. So it's much faster. Why? We don't have to wait, because all these systems are already spinning. We don't have to stop any system to engage and to synchronize transmission. So even if we're gonna talk like 5 minutes about upshifting, it takes 1 second. So to practice, you have to do it in 1 second. It's gonna be one of the most important thing is keeping rhythm. If you don't keep rhythm, you lose. So typical rhythm is boom, boom. Neutral gear. If you try to do it like neutral and gear, this is a problem, because if you are on the neutral, this truck, do you see the big truck with a van? So wind or something, maybe you're gonna go up a little upgrade, so it's slowing down. So if you lose first of all the speed, the ground speed, and also you lose RPMs. You have to trust me that, you know, to go for the next gear, you have to do it around 14 RPMs. So if you go lower, because the vehicle slows down, because you are lazy, for example, and you do it too slow, right? You think maybe that you are on vacation, not in the truck. So this problem is that you lose your speed, you lose your RPM, and you have a problem, you have a low graining. Some people try to be smart, and they try to do it fast, right? So if they get out of the neutral and try to put the gear instead of 14, next one, just let's say 15, even 17, so what's gonna happen? The difference between spinning, right? Engine is spinning too fast, right? You know, there's this shaft, and transmission is too slow. So you have at this moment high graining. This is a story. Maybe you remember that we have to put together, right? This gear shaft into the transmission gear. So this difference in spinning make noise, and sometimes makes shifting impossible or difficult, or maybe it makes you fail the test. So we have to do what? We have to, for shifting, this is the major purpose, you have to put two systems, transmission and clutch with the transmission shaft, into one spin, one speed. So that's why you can just go inside without any problems. If there is any difference, you have a grinding. So this is good to know. So usually if you have a grinding, or maybe it's impossible for you to get into, so one of the reasons could be that there is a different speed. So you don't match, you are unable to synchronize transmission. So let's go to the beginning. Like I said, you driving, you apply the gear number 1, and you start speed it up. What happens? Your RPMs gauge, it moves, right, from 11 to 16, 17. And like I said, at 16, 17, this engine gives you the information that, okay, go to the next. So what do we do? Take a look. First of all, you see at the top, you have to take off your accelerator. You see there's the middle, the second column, it says first action, take your foot off the accelerator. And what is next? You have to tap the clutch pedal, and at the same time go to neutral. So this is a problem at the beginning, because usually at the beginning you do it like not at the same time. You tap and then you try to go to neutral, because you have a problem with coordination. So the major thing is that you have to do it at the same time. So when the clutch is in the lowest position, so you have to go into neutral, because you make it easy, you separate. So that's why it's easy to go to neutral. You agree? Because this is the purpose. We use the clutch. You release these two systems to go to neutral. So it doesn't make sense to tap and come back and then try again to go to neutral. Right? So you have to this is the first difficult thing for you at the beginning, that you have to press clutch and at the same time go to neutral. You find at this moment how deep you have to press the clutch to go to neutral, which lets you go to neutral. And you can practice this even if you don't drive, right? So just the same time. That's why we put in the second point that you have to go tap the clutch and go to neutral. And what does it mean, tap? One more time. Tap, it means that you separate and put together. It's gonna be like a 1 second almost, not even second, half second. So you separate, because you need to separate the transmission, so go to neutral, and then you put together. So what happens? So even if you separate for half of the second, so these two plates which are still spinning, they have just a little difference. So that's why you just release the clutch, and these two guys are again spinning with the same speed. So in this situation, if you let the clutch off, you have just two systems right now to put together: this gear and transmission gear. The major problem for people who have experience in stick shift, they keep clutch down and they don't release. So this is separated. So how you can put the gear if you have at this moment engine which is spinning in different speed, clutch which is slowing down, and transmission which is also slowing down. So instead of two systems, you have three systems right now to put together. So that's why the major problem with people experience in passenger car stick shift is that they press clutch and they are happy that the clutch is down. Absolutely big mistake. So come back to the proper way. So you press clutch, you separate these two guys, right? You go to neutral and you again release the clutch. So it means that you have, this is like a one system, right? Because they are connected, engaged. So right now you have to do this connection. So you have to go to the next gear. So what do you have to do during this second, not even second? When you go to neutral, you have to find very fast where is the next gear position. Find this entrance to the next gear. It doesn't matter if it's gonna be this or this or this, right? You have to find and have a little pressure. And what's going on? You start upshifting here, right? Let's say if it drops to this position, you go to neutral, right? And then you find the next gear, have a little pressure and wait until the needle drops to 14. And at 14, you tap again, and at the same time you go into. Tapping just help, because like I said, if you synchronize, so it gets in by itself. You see in this material, please take a look. What is this last action to do? For you have to tap again and go into the next gear. But what is the most important thing? You have to find correct place for the next gear, the next gear position. And this is your problem, that you do this too slow, too fast, or maybe you don't know where the next gear is. Or maybe you don't even know where you are.
Too nervous.
Yeah, you panic. It happens, especially on the streets, right? So what I'm trying to tell you, this positioning you practice on the yard, right, is important because you get familiar how this transmission works and where is the real position of the next gear. If you don't know, how you can drive? So one more time, you have a problem to catch because you try to do upshifting too fast, too slow, and you don't know where is the next gear position. This is a major problems you have. And we have some solutions, but if you do understand right now why I have a problem and still graining, right? So that's why you will try to fix it, because you know what is your, mistake. So you see, upshifting is just boom, boom. And if we, because this is a slow speed, from 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, you're driving like from let's say to 15 miles per hour. So that's why you have to do it fast. But if you switch your speed, you make a switch, go to the upper range, 6, 7, 8. So you have a little bit more time. A little bit more time. Because, the truck is driving faster. And it's not slowing so fast. And the difference in speed is bigger here, you see? The range is different. So this is additional thing you have to understand. If you do it, you feel better in the truck. So now please go to the downshifting. So in downshifting, what do you have to do? It means that, for example, you have an intersection in front of you, right? Maybe stop sign, maybe lights, or maybe you have to just slow down. So what do you do to slow down? First action, you take your foot off the accelerator, right? This is the first course of action. So, and what happens if you take your foot off the acceleration? The RPM gauge is going down, right? And this is important because I didn't mention this at the beginning. If we make regular upshifting and regular downshifting, the main gauge we watch and we use is tachometer. So the speed of the engine. We don't use speedometer. We use tachometer. And we use these numbers. You see the major numbers. So if right now you take your foot of the accelerator and speed is, and the engine drops to 11, which is here, you can start a little bit earlier, between 12 and 11. And you have to have a feeling for you is what is good. So then you take a look at the material. You just again tap the clutch to go to neutral. The same story, right? Like upshifting. And what I said, this is the same thing, the same synchronization. So you tap, so you separate the engine just to make easy to go to neutral. That's all. No difference? No difference. And now the only difference, another step, is that you have to accelerate. Because we have to come to the same position like in the upshifting. So we have to hit the accelerator and increase your, RPMs to 16, 17. Why? Because we have to have a time again before it drops to 14, because I said 14 is the key, to find another gear. So that's why it gives us time, like a half second or maybe a little bit more, to find the gear, and at 14 gets in with the second clutch. So you see, the only difference between downshifting and upshifting is, first of all, that you're slowing down, but to do that as a technique, you have to do what? Accelerate. And then the final step is the same. If you compare these two sections, upshifting and downshifting, so you see the only difference is accelerating. Because the third activity you do in the downshifting, you just again tap, and you being in the entrance of the gear, tap and engage the gear. And what is the main problem? Few problems you have with downshifting. Why do you have a problem? Because some people, oh, this downshifting is terrible, right? You know what? First of all, some of you are afraid of accelerating. You just try to accelerate like boo, all right? It doesn't work. You have to hit acceleration, Don't be afraid. So first of all, you accelerate too slowly. Next mistake, you accelerate too late. Too late. You put on the neutral, and then before you start accelerating, this truck slows down. You can't let this guy slow down. You have to go step by gear. So that's why you have these ranges. You remember in the page we were analyzed before. So you can't. So, and you have to remember this one more time. This is empty track. In real life, when you will drive with a load, it may be a little bit easier for you because it's not slowed down so fast. But if you have an empty track, it happens very fast. So that's why you should concentrate, you should focus, and it should be like a boom, accelerate, and boom. Okay, so a little difference is acceleration. Don't be afraid, and you have to remember about acceleration. One more time. You make mistake because first of all, you accelerate too late. Second, you accelerate too slow, and maybe not up, high enough. Instead of 16, you accelerate maybe till only to 14. And at this situation, if you are experienced driver, it's not a big deal because you immediately find the next gear, and at 14 you get into. But we accelerate a little bit higher to give you time to find the next gear.
That's why it gives you to 17.
Yes, 16 or 17, right. But if you will gain some skill, you don't have to. So, this is just giving yourself time, and at 14, again, you see the same story. RPM drops to 14, right? And at 14, this shaft and the next lower gear is spinning 14 RPMs. The same speed. You follow me, guys? So you see on one page, we have what? We have explained upshifting and downshifting, which is a big problem. I don't try to make you, tomorrow be perfect shifters, right? But if you do understand what happens, so you will be better. You learn faster. You correct your mistakes faster. And what does it mean recovering? Because recover, it means that you start driving without the gear, right? You lose your gear. For example, you're driving at 85, at 35, okay, and you try to change to downshift to 7, and you have a problem to get in, right? And you are on neutral. So what happens? The ground speed of this truck drops down, and if it drops to 10 miles per hour, what happens? You lost few gears, right? So it's impossible if the ground speed of this truck is 10 miles per hour, so you can't go to 7, because for 7 the correct speed is, let's say, 23. It's not correct go to 6 because it's 20. So you have to remember this table and see, right now I'm driving only 10. So at this moment, to adjust your speed, ground speed, you use right now you use speedometer. And you use speedometer, you make a decision, 10 speed, 10 miles per hour, it applies to gear number 4. So that's why I have to downshift to 4. You have to skip 3 gears. This is not a mistake. Okay, this is not a mistake. It happens. I tell you in another situation. And what to do? Let me just finish the idea. What to do? So you drop your speed, the ground speed, to 10. You find, because you know this table, that okay, my speed right now, the gear will be the correct number 4. So what to do, and this is important, to recover, so to go to 4, so you have to put this gear in front of the gear number 4, so have like a little pressure, and then just accelerate slightly to 14. Don't go to 17. Don't use the clutch. Just put in the correct gear and accelerate, and you feel under your hand the moment it just gets in without any clutch. So if you do recovery, we don't use the clutch. So this is additional amendment you have to know. Don't be confused. So, like I said, if you do your upshifting and downshifting step by step, we use tachometer. We use these numbers, right? 11, 16, 17, and 14 to get into. But if you lose gear, so it means that we use just speedometer. And another situation, you lose the gear because you have a problem, right? You go like from one to the second and you have a problem. The second situation, it could be that you're driving, let's say 35 miles per hour, and you have a kid, or maybe any other vehicle with some problems in front of you, right? And you have to avoid accident. So what do? You press brake. And you drop again your speed to 10. So this situation is not a recovery, because you are still inside the transmission. Your transmission is still connected to the clutch. But you have to make decision which gear right now you have to go to using, again, speedometer. So you just go, instead to 7, 6, 5, you go to 4. Yes.
I understand that on the 5th, when you're in 5th gear, if you're, let's say, on 7 range and you're driving 35 miles an hour, on 5th, you're supposed to flip the switch. When do you recover if you turn around and you have that switch flipped up? What reaction will the truck take in that event that it drops? So, for example,
if you have to skip just one gear, so for example, skip from 8 to 6, 6 is still high range, okay, not low. So that's why you don't care about the switch. You see, oh, I'm driving, let's say 20, so I just skip 7 and go to 6. You do nothing with the switch. Now, if you see that your speed drops on the lower range, right, so like a 4 or 5th, so you have to, and always I recommend you make a decision. So before you go to neutral, switch down. Switch down. Okay, why? Because if you try to put switch when you are on the neutral, so for the average beginner, it's too many things to do. This is the first idea. So you prepare yourself before you start procedure by changing switch down. So the same story, please guys, let me finish because we make a still video. So the situation is that if you try to go from 5 to 6 or 6 to 5, what happens? So you plan, okay, I'm going up from 5 to 6. So what do you do before you start? So first of all, switch up, then upshift. If you go from 6 to 5, downshift, it's the same story. First of all, switch down, and then make a decision and do downshift. Is it clear? Yes.
Switch down before you clutch?
Before you start even the whole procedure. So you know, you're sure that you're gonna, let's say, downshift. So you're sure that you're gonna go 6 to 5. So switch down, and then wait until it drops to 11 and do it. So you know you have an empty space in front of you, right? So you know that you can do it regularly in a regular way. So you have to use the switch earlier. And what is important, guys, for shifting? Then when you start driving on the streets, so and you are coming to the intersection, so you have to, like we mentioned, you know, yesterday, you have to make a decision how far before the intersection I should start downshifting. So sometimes you go from 8 to 7 and you still feel that this is you are far away. So don't go to 6 at this moment, just keep driving on 7 until you know that just 2 downshiftings you can do very, close to the intersection, 6 and 5. So because if you go from 8 to 5 and it will be long way to the intersection, it means that you are driving too slowly. So yes.
My question for that, let's say you're coming into an oncoming stop and you're in a yellow and you're close and you're already slowing down, but you need to make like a sad stop.
Good.
Because it already changes on you.
Good question. So this is the situation, guys. We teach people like teenagers. Maybe you did the driving in school. So what happens? You're driving, and if you have a red lights, just before you, right? So it's sometimes a better decision just keep driving, right? Because if you try to stop in the last moment, you can have a skid, or maybe you stop in the middle of the intersection. So sometimes you have to make such kind of decision for your safety. The worst thing, if you do 2 or 3 decisions, you brake and release, and maybe brake again, right? So believe me, this is the worst thing. But in the truck, you're driving an 8 or maybe 7. Let's say 7 because this is, you're close to the intersection, you are on 7. And you see that the lights changes to yellow. And you have no time to downshift. Stay on 7. Just press clutch and brake. That's it. Because when you start downshifting, you probably stay on on loose, so on neutral, and you fail the test. Because always you have to stop the truck being on the gear. So it is safe action. But if you see the intersection in front of you, stop or lights, and you have a time to downshift, you have to downshift. Okay? So like I said, if you have no time to downshift, stop where you are. And this is not a mistake. But always what I'm trying to put in our mind, guys, if you stop the truck, doesn't matter, it's going to be 7, 6, 5, always before you go to 3, make sure that the switch is down.
And keep the clutch pressed.
Clutch is all the time down, right? You don't have to make all the time, all the way, because we don't have to use clutch.
You go one and you got down, middle.
Yes, because for example, if you stop on 5, so it means that at this moment transmission is not spinning, right? And also this is synchronized, right? So the shaft is not spinning. So if you just go immediately from 5 to 3 without even using clutch brake, so there is no problem because these two guys are still not spinning. But if you just slowly go to, to neutral, and then you wait too long, so this guy can start spinning if you don't use the clutch brake. So that's why I recommend, when you stop the truck, press clutch and go to 3 and wait for your lights. Yes.
Switch down means like switch down and up.
So what does it mean, switch down and up?
Yeah.
This is a transmission. Kind of transmission we have, this is 10-speed transmission, so we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, the low range. So the switch on the shifter, we have a switch here, right, is down. Then you have the same positions, but when you push the switch up, so it means that you're gonna go 6, 7, 8, 9, 10.
Like a one switch.
One switch. It's
Down means 5 gears.
yes,
Maximum.
or
And up means
yes,
5 to 10.
yes. So lower range and upper range.
Excuse me, it's a good idea to keep in our minds that once you get into 5th gear, you always get ready to throw it into high range because you're going into 6th.
So it depends. Like I said, if you are sure that you're gonna upshift, it's empty space in front of you. So like I said, don't switch up, too early, of course. Just but before you start procedure, always put the switch up. Because if you do it too early, something can happen if in front of you.
Oh, sure, yeah.
So
That's
like
interesting.
we are traveling in a city.
Yes,
So sometimes we are using 5 gear and then 6.
yes.
So every time we use that switch like up and down, up and
It
down.
depends what speed you should drive. You remember, in the city, you have a 30 miles per hour, so it's at least 7 or 8, right? Something around. So that's why this is the upper range. If you're driving on the parking lot, so you have a low range, so 5, or you're slowing down, right? So that's why you have to remember this ranges, speed, and gears.
So in case we are coming to 35 to 25 or 20.
Mhm.
So what time to downshift? We don't
No, downshift, like I said, you start the downshift at 11 RPMs, but when you go from 6 to 5, because 6 is the higher range, 5 is lower range, so you skip ranges right now. So at this moment you have to make a switch. Before you go from 6 to 5, you push down the switch. Yes.
So gears 9 and 10, those are the only ones you're going to use for highway, right?
So you know what, sometimes
Like 7, 8, or is it just 9 and 10?
take a look, guys. 9 speed, it is over 40, 45. So in real situation in the city, we don't use it. It's too fast. So sometimes you have a special streets or roads, right, which you can just drive 45 in the city, but this is rare. So regularly, on the state road, we have a 30 miles per hour, right? So that's why the maximum is the 8 speed, because this is the maximum of the ground. But if you put the 8, so you can keep, and the engine feels good. So I forgot one thing. Take a look. You see, remember 14? This is a key point when you go up and down at the same time, the same engine speed. But when you're driving to California, or doesn't matter where, so you remember, if you try to down at 11, the engine starts like a choking, trying to tell you, oh, go down. If you go try 17, 16, it says, come on, change, switch to higher gear. So the engine feels the best. So this is smooth driving around 13, 14 RPMs. So you feel that the engine is just, driving smoothly, and it's not gonna need anything, just you driving. So even if you use it like a cruise control, right? So you will see that usually the speed of the engine adjusts in the some point, and it could be around 13-14 RPMs. So this is the best speed and the best fuel usage also. Yeah.
So cruise
And-
control, you press the clutch and the brake as you stop, and then like once you let it go, it goes back to the speed you adjusted it to.
So
Like when it's on cruise control.
on cruise control you have in the cruise control you have a switch. Are you talking about?
Oh, when it goes up.
Yeah.
When you
And
step on the brake a little bit, slow down on any cruise control, it automatically turns off.
if you press the brake, right? So yeah. So right now, to conclude this class, please go to the page number 28. So if you see on the page number 28, excuse me, am I still here? I am?
Yes.
All right.
Like recording it.
Okay.
We're still live. We're still live. We're still live. No time to fix your hair.
I'm like, what you doing?
All right. So maybe you remember I mentioned that you have to if you understand this what we did talk today, so it's much easier for you to fix mistakes, right? So to understand and fix what I did wrong, or maybe practice the proper way. So take a look what is the 8 points in the back. You see the last section? So first of all, practice the gear position. You can do 2 different ways. Engine is spinning, right? So like I said, you close your eyes. Okay, you use your clutch brake first, engage the first gear. You keep clutch down and just, watching outside or closing your eyes, practice the position, but slowly. Slowly. And what is also important, you remember we have a tall guys and short guys. So your seat will be closer or maybe farther from the dashboard, right? So that's why each person has a little different grip of the stick shift. So you have to catch your own when you feel the most comfortable. The worst thing is if you just start shifting and you just pushing. You think that you are. Thank you. All right. So let's go back to this, 8 points. So first point, like I mentioned before, is just positioning. So we have two situations. You can just press the clutch, engage the first gear, and like I said, close your eyes. This is the best thing, and start feeling slowly, not like this. Slowly find the position, the entrance of each gear, and then the next gear, and then another, and come back and spend few minutes on it. So that's why if you do it few times, believe me, you will remember. You will remember how hard you have to push, pull, and like I said at the beginning of this class, let transmission help you. Because we have a special springs over there. You remember what I said, right? That's why if you go step by step, it helps. So the second situation, what I recommend, some people, even if you go outside on the streets, you have a problem, for example, just between 2 gears. All other gears are fine. So what does it mean? That you have a problem to find this gear. So stop the truck on the parking lot and just practice, for example, 3-4, 4-3, 3-4, 4-3, until you fix this. If you spend few minutes like this, believe me, when you start driving again, you will do that. You will start shifting again. Next, what is next? shift patterns. So I mentioned also at the beginning that you should be familiar, like, because we have these questions today, where is each gear, right? And where to use shifter. So this little switch. And you can put also, you have in your material such kind of diagrams, but also you can put, let's say, on your refrigerator, and every day when you have a breakfast, you can watch and see and memorize. Second, learn how to grab the gear stick. Like I said, you are close, maybe you are far, and maybe gear number 1 and reverse you have to grab in different way, and maybe when you go to 4 and 5 you have to do in different ways also. So that you have to find the comfortable grab which is for you. But first of all, before you do that, you have to adjust your seat that way that you can reach your clutch brake. Yeah, you remember, you can use the full position of the clutch. All right, so the next one is practice tapping. So you see, it's so easy because, you know, if you sit in the truck and you press hard the, clutch, there is a heavy spring inside, right? So it lets you, go back very easy. So just boom, boom, try to practice this, don't keep and stay over there. Just tapping, down and up, down and up. And then you have to coordinate another movement over here, so to neutral, right? Tap to neutral. So the same way. Believe me, it helps. Even if you don't drive, don't start practicing this on Harlem, or maybe on the, 71st Street. So we have a lot of space, on our parking lot. So you see, the next is what I said, this coordination, number 5. Okay, and then you see practice, and maybe, like I said, don't be afraid about acceleration. And
I'm worried about that diagram. When you say acceleration and you're practicing, okay, in order to shift from 5 to 6 gear, you have to flip that switch. Where on that diagram is 6, 7, 8, 9, and 10?
so I didn't put, because we just, this is like,
But just for example.
so 6 is here,
Oh, okay.
7, 8, 9, 10.
Okay.
The same way.
Okay.
You have in the book this diagram.
Okay.
Okay, so I just, for today purpose, so I just didn't put this because it's gonna be too messy.
But I just
Yeah.
wanted to know where.
Yeah. So exactly the same way, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. All right. So hard acceleration. So maybe you remember, we start practicing shifting on the parking lot, right? So you're driving around and go from, like I always recommend, 2 to 3 and 3 to 2. Why? Because it's easy. You see, this is the middle position. So when you catch this procedure, how to go boom, boom, so 2, 3, and then when you catch down, boom, accelerate, boom, right? So it means that then when you will be fluent with 2, 3, 3, 2, 2, 3, 3, 2, so you have to just add 4. Procedure is the same, rhythm is the same, but the only difference is the position. Then if you go to 4, then you can just try to go to 5. So that's why, or what I recommend, please remember 4 and 5, so you go like a little curves, 2 curves. Okay, don't just go like a straight line. Curve, you just go away, and away. So you will feel when you start practicing. And what is the next situation? You have to, like I said, if you make your regular shifting, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and down. So you have to remember use RPMs. And just put these three numbers also on your refrigerator. It helps. So that's why sometimes, like I said, you can start downshifting at 12. So it gives you a little bit more time. It depends. If you are skillful, 11 is fine. And the last one, what we did already, what we mentioned, this is the table from the page number 25, right? So you have to be familiar because it's good for recovering, right? And also it's good, you know, if you have to change and skip gears from, let's say, 7 to 5 or from 7 to 4. So that's why you have to know these speed ranges, which one applies to which. All right, guys, so any questions? What, you know, I'm asked you to do, because, you know, we have all this stuff right now on the video also here, right? So you can come anytime, repeat, and believe me, after 2-3 times you will remember everything what we said today and or maybe yesterday. It will be very helpful, because if you go to the track, you know what to do. You know what to do. And also this book, which is in front of you, this manual, so please don't use only the inspection section. There is skill, you remember we did talk yesterday, and this is shifting, because this is the most difficult thing. So if you have a problems, let's say today you have a problem with downshifting or upshifting, go home, take this manual and open the page number 25 and 7, I'm sorry, and see what did I wrong. And then open to page number 28 and see what do I have to do to fix it. What is the best? So that's why we cooperate. You will be more involved in the teaching process. So it means there's no more questions. Okay, guys, so thank you for today, and you know, see you next time.
Thank you.
Yeah.